Now we're going to move on to our panel with Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmitz and Rena Shaw, Republican strategist. Okay, so, I mean, it's the story of the day, that's for sure. Senator Mark Warner, who was at the Intel hearing, posted on X that Hegseth and Mike Waltz should actually resign. Rena, I'm going to start with you. How much do you think this issue is going to follow with the Trump administration, and what do you make of what you've heard so far?
Laura, I think one thing we ought to recognize here is that we can apply logic here. If this were a junior staffer that were found out to be the one to have added somebody inadvertently, that junior staffer would lose their job. So I think we need to put things very squarely here. I'm part of the crop of Republicans. I share the sentiment of many on Capitol Hill, many who might not be willing to speak out right now, that Hegseth should bear the brunt of the responsibility for this. Waltz as well, and both men should be let go, because this is about Donald Trump protecting the men and women that wear our uniform bravely. That is his #1 job as commander-in-chief. And I think if he wants to look good in this moment, particularly as Democrats are throwing to him that, hey, this is but what about our emails type of situation, this is right in contrast with that, then he looks very strong if he says, you know what, my men made a mistake here, this was a very trivial mistake, and I'm not going to give them a second chance. But we don't think that's going to happen, because Speaker Johnson is already out saying that these guys don't even deserve disciplinary action. So what this does is project to the world, and this is what I'm most worried about, that we are vulnerable, that we are not an organized group here at our highest level of government. And that, again, is egg on the face of Republicans. So we need to apply logic here. I'm not going to defend the indefensible here, but on the one hand, we also got to say this is the word of one man, one journalist against 18, 20 people who were on the chain. Fast-moving chain though it is, I hope to see more, and I hope there's disciplinary action, including a firing.
You know, Nicole, there was this exchange between Senator John Ossoff and the CIA director. Let's listen.
Director Radcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
A national political...
Hold on.
No, you
Let me
hold
answer.
on. No, Director
The
Radcliffe, I asked you a yes or no question, and now you hold on. A national political reporter
you can characterize it how you want.
Was made privy
the White
to
House
sensitive information about imminent military operations against a foreign terrorist organization.
Mistake of adding a reporter,
and that wasn't a huge mistake.
I mean, that answer was no for him. Nicole, how do you think the administration should have responded there?
I mean, look, it's ridiculous that they are not copping to the fact that this is a huge problem. I mean, this was such a breach, and in typical Donald Trump fashion, he comes out and he's just critical of the reporter. He's critical of the publication. I mean, he behaves in a way I wouldn't allow my 7-year-old to behave. They need to take responsibility. What Rena said is absolutely true. This shows an incompetence at the highest levels, which is bad for our military. It is bad for our country. It is dangerous, actually, for our military and our citizens. I mean, a junior staffer, like she said, would be fired. There needs to be an acknowledgement that this is a huge problem. This was a gigantic security breach, and there needs to be real consequences for that. And the fact that they are lining up even the whole cabinet to just defend this, I mean, why are you on Signal at all? How are you adding random names, including a reporter? It's mind-blowing. I feel like I'm watching an episode of Veep.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune said these messages were inappropriate, but he also had this to say. Watch this.
I think you have to look at what the president says and what the people around him are saying on these issues of foreign policy and national security, and not text messages that were obviously probably inappropriate. I think everybody has acknowledged, including the White House, that, yeah, mistakes were made. And what we want to do is make sure that something like that doesn't happen again.
Well, sure, that's a great idea. Rena, what do you think is the best strategy for Republicans to take here? Because, look, no matter any way you cut it, we keep going back to the sound that we've been hearing all day. And it is, you know, a lot of people say this is crazy. I've been talking to people in our newsroom and backstage, so to speak, and people are like, they just can't believe that this happened.
This security event is really mind-boggling because it seems so clear what happened. A person was inadvertently added. Now, were they added because their name was confused with, say, a Middle East expert who shares the same name, or they were trying to add somebody else by the first name starting with J? We don't know. Those details are being lost here. So I want to encourage folks to listen to Senator Thune. That pragmatism right now is really important. First question on my mind, Laura, is what did the president know and when did he know it? Because it concerns war. War is something that needs to be handled by Congress. It cannot happen unilaterally, by an agency. Secretary of Defense here, Hegseth, I think has proven that he is not up to the mark here. I think this is not making President Trump look good, as it will continue to take new life. Goldberg will take more action, releasing maybe whatever. I think on the one hand, this is a security event. I don't believe it's a breach, and I want to be very clear about that. I think words matter in this moment because I don't think this was bad actors going to purposely do something. This was an event in which we looked terribly unprepared regarding hard power. And that's something we got to dig deep into this moment. America is known for soft power. Our adversaries, Russia, China, they love hard power. So of course they would want war plans, but the American public right now is not aware of any war plans. We're aware of details via Goldberg of security operations, which were, again, classified details, but we need to pay attention and look for the nuance here. Again, not trying to defend the indefensible here, but this is very messy. And if Trump cares about his legacy, particularly as he's trying to solidify it in this first 100 days, I think he ought to let Hegseth and Waltz go.
All right, well, I've got to bring it up. Hillary Clinton. Rena, I'll stay with you on this because Republicans blasted Hillary Clinton for using a private server for classified emails. We all remember this, but defended Trump officials for using Signal. Listen to what Senator Ted Cruz had to say on this.
Listen, it was obviously a mistake. What the entire text thread is about is President Trump directed his national security team, take out the terrorists and open up the shipping lanes. That's terrific. That is in America's interest, and we ought to be very encouraged by that.
All right, so I'm going to get both of you to weigh in. Rena, I'll start with you. How are the two situations different?
Senator Cruz is trying to say this is kind of business as usual and it's a detail we ought to know. No, Senator Cruz, this is not a detail we ought to know. It's a detail that usually doesn't slip out anywhere until much later. So I'm perplexed by this. I don't like this tribal mentality right now of trying to protect Republicans because it's our own or something. This is a time war is very serious. The amount of money we throw at defense is very serious. But one thing here, I'm not going to do the whataboutism because Hillary Clinton was not talking about war when she used the private server and she was in the whole email entanglement. I think we got to powder our noses and wait a little bit before engaging that kind of thing.
Okay.
Let's learn more.
Very quick to you, Nicole. I'll give you the last word.
I mean, yeah, she wasn't talking about classified information. It's not the same. And what's frustrating is something that Rena actually acknowledged earlier, which is that a lot of people in the Republican Party behind the scenes are talking about this and are incredibly frustrated, are blown away by this happening, have so many thoughts that are what reflective of what we're saying here, but they're not saying them out loud. And that is frustrating. We need these Republicans to stand up and say, nope, it's not about what party this is. This is unacceptable. These people need to be fired. We need new leadership in these cabinet heads. And that's the reality. But for some reason, there's just this stranglehold that's happening in the Republican Party where they just do not stand up and say things against Donald Trump. And it's everywhere from senior staff to senators and electeds themselves. They've got to start saying it in public, what we hear behind the doors on Capitol Hill every day.
Look, this is going to be a long road, I have a feeling. Nicole Brenner-Schmitz and Rena Shaw, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.